I'm actually able to record this. Hang on, let me stop this one. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Nikita and I lead the content function at ProHands. This webinar is in partnership with Ecosystem and ProHands, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this webinar. We're going to focus on navigating the complexities of the hybrid workforce, which is a pertinent challenge across the industry. I have Audrey William with me from Ecosystem. She's a principal advisor and has a rich experience in customer experience and contact center space. I also have Brendan Murray, who's the country manager and VP of sales for ProHands. He leads all sales initiatives for ProHands in Australia and New Zealand. Now, with that introduction, I'm happy to hand it over to Audrey. Audrey, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Nikita, and very good afternoon to everyone who's joining today's webinar. I'm delighted to take you through a very hot topic in the industry, and that is hybrid work. And I think this is, a really good discussion today that's real. It's set in, it's taken off in a big way, but there are also complexities around it. So before I get into the data, and I will be presenting a lot of data today from Ecosystems Voice of Employee study, I just want to say that, we've all gotten used to working in this hybrid work model. A lot of that changed for us during the pandemic, and obviously we're all living it today. And what it's done is it's actually created a lot of opportunities, especially for women. If you look at, childcare, that's expensive. And you look at women going back to the industry to work, but also generally the larger population across ANZ. People now can drop their kids off at school, pick them up. They can do a variety of things, and they can still work effectively. However, the challenge is when it comes to the HR leaders, the CEO, and the board of directors, and even the leaders of departments, they tend to be concerned. They tend to be concerned when productivity is high, they know that things are working, but they want to know what are some of the challenges, what are some of the issues, and how can hybrid work really be effective? And are my employees really being productive? And so, I'll share some stats throughout and talk about the complexities. But one thing I want to point out is this is real today and this is here to stay. Employees are demanding greater flexibility. This is ANZ data. And if you look at this data, across the board, you can see that 64% of employees prefer the work from anywhere model. So that means they want to be able to work and work effectively from any location. They want the choice of their work location left to them. Now, this is sometimes not favorable to some employers, and they want to choose to work flexible hours. So all in all, flexibility is the name of the game. And only 15% are happy with traditional work hours. And as we know, that was all part of the past. The Industrial Revolution introduced that. It was 9 to 5. It was the punch card system, and it seeped into the corporate world. But the pandemic has changed all of that. But it also presents a lot of challenges. And then when flexibilities come in, what the employees are saying and what they've said to us when we ran this survey early this year was, when they have that flexibility, they have the hours of work that they want, it actually improves productivity. They feel they can work a lot better. It could be in the mornings, it could be in the evenings, it could be after the kids have gone to bed. So they're really balancing that. And they're not saying, no, we're not working, but you've given us all this time. We don't also have to commute. As we know, in different parts of the world today, it's very expensive to travel to live in the CBD. So people now live, an hour away from the CBD, 2 hours away. So commute time in a day can be 3 to 4 hours. So what if you save on that? The other thing that the employees have said is it encourages collaboration, and they feel good. They feel good about being in a company that gives them the flexibility. And so this is where this has created a lot of complexities, and why today's webinar is really important, because you're going to hear from Brendan and me about these complexities, as well as, what are some of the tools and technologies and also the strategies that HR leaders, CEOs, departments can use to navigate around these complexities. So the biggest challenge that came out from the study was addressing hybrid work challenges. A lot of employees said that as much as they like it, the things that were not going too well for them were distractions at home, occasionally noise. And this is true when you have to give a live presentation, or you're in a very important meeting, or you're about to close a deal with a client. Many have said sometimes noise becomes an issue, which is why they've chosen, some days to go to the office to do the more important tasks where they have a quiet room. Some have said that there's difficulty in collaborating with colleagues. So, these could be engineers, scientists, developers, who really need to work as a team, and they need to be within a room at times. So again, it depends on the industry. So many have said that sometimes it can be really difficult in collaborating, which is another reason why, the word hybrid, because it talks about why some employers now are saying you got to work a few days in the office and then a few days at home. And some have said that 35% in ANZ pointed out that there are connectivity and network challenges. And I think if you're on a live call or on a presentation like this, and all of a sudden something goes wrong, then you will struggle. And there's a disconnect from the corporate culture. Some have said that. So these are real challenges that I'm sure even all of us have experienced it in one way or another. And this is the big challenge, HR leaders, when I talk to them, when I interview team leaders, when we talk about hybrid work, the big challenge is, if we're going to enable hybrid work, what are the strategies to make it successful? But behind all of that complexity is, how can we understand our workforce better? When are our employees the most productive? Are they productive in the mornings after 10 a.m.? Are they most productive after 5 p.m.? What are the typical downtime hours? And these are data points today that a lot of leaders want, but they don't have access to it. You need the analytics, you need the data to try and give you this sort of granular information to build the perfect hybrid strategy. What applications are being used the most and the least. Now, for a lot of enterprises, they would have invested in perhaps multiple CRM systems, multiple tools for finance and accounting, but they're finding that most employees are only using one particular application. So it really tells the CIO and the IT team that, hey, they're spending too much, and this is how money needs to be allocated differently. Similarly, you can also find out if employees are liking a particular application that's making them do well, for example, for accounting and payroll, well, then maybe you might want to look to invest more in that. So it's the data now that becomes very important as you navigate these complexities around hybrid work. How can employees be better leveraged for specific functions? And this is a really important point, because you might have a group of workers who they're really doing well at a particular task, but they haven't been moved into the role. They haven't been trained. And you see that trend coming up in the data in terms of how they're working, how they're communicating with customers. And that these employees, if you give them the chance, for example, to go into pre-sales or a sales role, they'll probably excel. And this is going to be a new beginning for the new product you're launching. The data is so important, because leaders, HR leaders want to know how employees can be assigned to higher value tasks. Are your employees adhering to compliance guidelines? And this is one of the reasons why this challenge is a real challenge. Whilst many companies have implemented hybrid work and staff are working from home and the office, getting this granular information is so critical for these different personas in the organization, because they really want to make it work for the enterprise. And the third challenge is, nearly every company, every large company and medium-sized company, of course, not across the board, but I would say, it's quite real that today they have about 5 generations in the workplace. It's common because you have the university graduates, and then you have, people who are above 55 years. That's considered young today. So having this in the workforce is a reality. Now, it also creates a lot of challenges as you navigate hybrid work. HR and IT will want to know if some employees are not happy because they prefer in-person collaboration. And you can see from the first chart that, that is not the case with the less than 25-year-olds or the 25 to 34-year-olds. They're okay with fully working from home. They're used to remote work. Likely to use personal communication apps for work. You can see that it's really it is not popular with 45-year-olds to 55-year-olds and above. And the reason I'm showing you this chart, including the third point here, is because if you are looking to buy technology, if you want to promote some stuff, if you want to train some of your staff, if you want to navigate through some of the challenges around even how employees prefer to use daily collaboration tools, you really need to understand how your employees across the multiple generations are preferring to work. And this is an exercise that you have to run internally. It's different for every organization. And again, it comes down to data. How are you going to get the data to tell you some of these points? And, this is a topic that's really close to my heart, because I think, I feel, obviously very sad when I hear the news today about mental related issues and burnout, because it's clearly on the rise. And even if you look at the contact center industry, Asian attrition is on the rise. And it is real today. It gets reported in all the dailies. You see it on LinkedIn. You see people breaking down. And that's why it is a big priority today for HR leaders, including CEOs, by the way. They really want to make the workplace, the hybrid workplace, a happy workplace. They want to ensure that they can attract new talent. They can improve. They want to make sure that they're not overworking their employees, because a lot of employees are also facing burnout in today's world. And 34% of the workforce in ANZ are looking to change their jobs in 2024. And when we drill down further, we found that it was clearly around just not being happy with the flexibility, not given the right tools and technologies or the environment to work and accelerate and do their jobs better. And this is a serious topic, because if organizations don't address this, it's not only that they will get bad press in the market, but they face the risk of impacted productivity. They will find it very difficult to attract new talent. As an analyst, I have seen some of those companies and how they're struggling to attract new talent because of the workplace culture. And then you've got to spend time and resources on onboarding new employees, because remember, when your employees resign, when they leave, and when many leave, it's not easy to just replace them the next week. And that impacts the overall performance of the company. So delivering that unique employee experience is important. So when we got that data, we asked the employers this time, we asked them, well, what is it that was really important for them? And they said, we're definitely worried about productivity, but at the same time, we don't want our staff to leave. We want to drive the best experience. We want to give employees time off. We want to monitor them better. We want to understand from the data what's working and what's not working. We want to continue to improve the collaboration tools and solutions. 34% said that in ANZ. So these are important points, and it is real today. Employers take EX very seriously. You've all heard of that, EX, employee experience. And there's a lot to navigate through that. So what do organizations need to do? There are three big points here, and one of them is to definitely, recognize and understand the daily emerging patterns that could result in lost productivity, burnout, and underutilization of employees. This is very important because this is a new paradigm shift. It's a new way of working. So we're all navigating through this, but you want to be able to see these patterns. It is important. And, strike a balance between monitoring and acting on feedback by also fostering a culture of listening. So, make this whole process work well. It's not just about entirely monitoring, but you're going to bring in a whole new culture of listening. And employees like that. They also want to be heard. And then finally, craft optimal work arrangements, because the one thing that's come out in the data, and you saw that in my first slide, no matter how we asked this question and we cut it in multiple ways and we tested the first slide globally and across the Asia Pacific region, the key word is flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. Employees want that. They've tasted it and they want it. And so this is the reason why workplace analytics becomes very important. In fact, it's more crucial than ever, not just for the HR leaders, because obviously for them it's extremely important, but today's CEOs and boards of directors are very concerned because this really helps shape a new company, a new workforce, attracting new talent. You want to be able to reduce resignations, boost efficiency, provide predictive insights. If you know that something is going to happen or a cluster of workers are facing a challenge, you can do something to prevent that from happening. And only the data can reveal that to you. How do you enhance training programs? And you can see that from how employees are using tools and applications, how they're communicating. It'll give you a sense of if employees are taking too long to complete a particular task or a job, they're struggling to understand certain dynamics. Well, it means that they might need a different kind of environment, or they need to be sent for training. And these are important things to think about. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. And I'd like to now invite Brandon Marie to join me for a fireside chat. So I'll have to work this carefully, but Brandon, as always, great to chat with you and have you here today.
Thanks, Audrey, and thanks for joining us and for those insights. I think it's resonating with a lot of businesses at this current time, and people we talk to across various industries are all identifying the same challenges and looking at ways at how to improve it. So it certainly is top of mind for many organizations at the moment.
No, great. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So maybe we can start with the first question I have, and that is, Brandon, hybrid work is here to stay, and it does not come without challenges, as I presented that earlier. Can you tell us what you're hearing from the market and what employers want to resolve, Brandon?
Yeah, I think you touched on that from a HR perspective. There are, there's a myriad of challenges there, right? People are facing burnout. We've all heard the term quiet quitting, and the people that are really quiet quitting are the ones that are overworked. Mm. They can't see a way out, which obviously affects their ability to perform, and then they disengage. It's just all becoming too much for them. So we hear that a lot from HR.
Yeah.
And that's probably the top one, people burning out. I think you touched on another one, which also leads to, people quitting, is the fact that a lot of people were brought on to organizations during the pandemic, right? So yes. The training wasn't what it was before. People have tried their best, but it wasn't an environment or face-to-face. People have been left with materials to get through and try and figure out how to do their job. So it's you can easily identify trends of people that are actually struggling because they are performing tasks in a longer time, and it's not focusing on, are people poor at their job. It's more
Yeah, that's right.
focusing around bettering themselves, right? So people are able to have dashboards or gamification to see how am I performing against the team, and why is it that I'm taking longer than other people are taking for certain processes. And that could be easily identified by applying tools and doing quadrant analysis on different functions, whether it's in finance or whether it's support personnel, etc. And then being able to bring those people to a more ideal quadrant of
Yeah.
what the organization expects, but not necessarily what the organization expects. It's what they need to deliver for their customers. So essentially, from a HR perspective, not everyone's going to be a top performer, but certainly most people can be an ideal performer. So it really helps in shaping what good work patterns looks like for certain functions and departments across the organization.
Yeah. No, good points there. And Brendan, you touched on burnout, and I presented that as well. And we hear that a lot today in the press as well. Employee fatigue and burnout is real. I mean, it's happening every day. And I often think, apart from overloading work, the workplace culture also needs to change. So we are in this era now where we're making huge shifts in the way we work. What are your thoughts on this?
You mean from a cultural perspective?
Yep. And just generally, because it is, I mean, you look at the press and you look at the dailies in ANZ, the Fin Review, it's now coming out a lot. And obviously, HR leaders are concerned.
Yeah, look, I think culturally, it's difficult for organizations to navigate, because I think until we start changing the mentality of someone needs to sit in front of me to be productive, then that's a struggle, right? You understand that organizations have spent a fair amount of money on the rentals of buildings, and I think that's a driver to get people back to the office. But look, I think that there really needs to be a mix, right? Most people you talk to, they want that personal touch. They want to stand around the bubbler and come up with ideas, etc. But you have to then expect that those people aren't necessarily going to be as productive as they are at home.
Yeah.
So
And that's a good point you mentioned as well, because when employees collaborate and when they meet, and that's why the balance is important, it also reduces that anxiety or sometimes, depression issues, because you're meeting people, you're talking, you're not just in isolation at home 24 hours a day.
That's correct, right? Because no human is a machine, right? They need to interact, and they also enjoy doing their work, I think, if they understand what they're doing, if they're getting value out of the organization, etc. So, it's interesting because most organizations, I believe, are generally trying to do the best by everyone, right? Now, if you then look at the challenge of doing the best by everyone, but I still need to run a business, I still need to service my customers, I still need to be productive. How do I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, when you talk to different organizations, they're doing things manually, right? People are filling in Excel timesheets or saying, this is what I did today. And then we try and get information from our data lakes, and we're trying to represent something that's productivity. But most leaders I'm talking to, it's I say, so how do you measure that? And they retort with, how do I measure that? Right? So there is no way of measuring productivity, but also the well-being, because there are people that are good at their jobs, and let's just give them all the work. They're great at it. And identifying that some people are not great at it, so don't give them the work. But it's not the people not being great at it. It's the organization's role to be able to train those people, or to actually sit down with them and say, look, this is the trend. What can we do to help you? Because most people aren't going to put their hand up and say, oh, I don't know. And I think that culture has to change in organizations, where they're actually going to the employees and saying, how can I help you? Because, and it's a whole perception thing, right? Because the data doesn't lie either way. So the human aspect of a manager disliking someone and saying they're poor at their job, that goes away. It's a level playing field.
Yeah.
So, you know, those cultural things need to shift. The mentality of being at a desk and I know you're working, because we all know you could sit at a desk and do nothing, right? And it truly does affect people, right? Because even before the pandemic, in another business that I ran across Asia Pacific, I said to staff, I don't care what you do during the day, just do your job. I don't care if you go and pick your kids up. I don't care if you're coming to the office at 10 a.m. and you leave at 2. But once you give people that flexibility, you'll actually get more productivity. That's just my personal experience.
But it's true. I think what you said came out from ecosystems data earlier in ANZ. It showed that when you give them that flexibility, productivity just goes up. But just on that point as well, that you mentioned all those great points on burnout, and even if you look at the contact center industry, Brandon, you and I know that attrition is really high there. And that's why the way contact centers navigate through this has also got to change. It's not just about having workforce management applications. You need deeper analytics to understand the real issues happening in terms of how the agents are feeling, what are they struggling with. And maybe, you know, it's about time that these group of agents actually take a break and they work elsewhere, or they go on a holiday. Because the attrition levels are now reaching 90 to 100%. So we're entering serious levels of burnout.
Yeah, and a lot of it's got to do with processes as well, right? Some there's 20% of organizations that have automated processes, but nothing more than about 15 to 18% of their processes. So by identifying patterns of what people are doing on a support desk, what they're doing in HR or finance and payroll, can actually also identify process breakdowns, right? Why are people navigating to certain applications when there's actually no need to go there? Why are they doing that? Right? How's the process breaking down? And it's interesting because I've been, obviously in the tech space for a long time, worked with an artificial intelligence company as well. And there's a lot of, first it was the robotic process automation phase, where everyone wanted to automate everything. And now everyone thinks that you can do everything with artificial intelligence, which is, I guess, not in my lifetime. I can't see it, right? There are some things you'd be able to do and others you can't. But at the core, the baseline is productivity, right? Time is a measurement, but time isn't everything. You correlate that with output, and then being able to trend data using Six Sigma or lean management tools. That's where the real value comes from, because now organizations can actually see people aren't saying we're busy, we need more staff, and that's just a mindset. No, we don't need more staff. But we don't know that. So
that's right. You're just making the assumption. You don't have the data. You don't have it at your fingertips.
Well, and if you flip
trends and patterns.
Yeah, and if you flip that, organizations may go, oh, okay, so you need more people. How many more? Oh, 52. Okay, there you go. Go and hire those people. But what about the latent capacity that may exist in that business because people weren't skilled properly? They can't be cross-skilled. And, there's a myriad of examples you can pull. If you look at outsourcing in the financial services industry, at times people have to wait for security clearances to perform work for certain organizations, and they're sitting on the bench for 3 weeks. So why not utilize the bench players to actually work on other parts of the business?
No, good points, Brandon. And
Yeah.
I want to now move to a topic close to your heart, and that is workplace analytics, because workplace analytics, can do the trick. It can solve a lot of these issues that we're discussing today. But you also want to ensure that as you introduce this to the organization, you're not just constantly monitoring employees 24/7. So how can HR leaders and employers deploy the solution and yet ensure that employees are aware of it, and they feel comfortable about it?
Yeah, look, like everything, right? It's a change management process, right? If you
Yeah.
don't, and I'll stress communicate with the staff before solutions like these are deployed. It's really bringing people on the journey. And what
Yeah.
we do is we have in our services organization, a whole change management team that'll talk all the way from, down from the C level and actually setting expectations. So once we deploy this for the first month, our suggestions to companies are don't identify any users. So we can obviously we can mask everything. So what you're really interested in is doing a type of advisory study for a month and going back to the business and actually presenting just figures, savings, deficiencies. If you improve your productivity by 15 minutes a day per person, that ROI would give you a payback in 5 to 7 months. And I'm just pulling a time frame
Yeah.
based on certain deployments we've done. So the ROI could be huge. But from the employee perspective, right? An employee has their own dashboard, so they can see how they're trending against their peers, and what our customers that are on board have actually identified. People are actually putting their hands up and saying, "Why is it that I'm trending this way when I'm actually sitting at my desk for 9 or 10 hours and I'm doing the work, but it's obviously taking me longer." And so
Yeah.
therefore, they themselves start to identify that I might need more training. I might just need to do things in a different way. So you start identifying a lot of trends, and the employees themselves start identifying these. So there's different user access levels where you may never give first line managers access to actually look at people, right? And every organization is different. I've heard of organizations that just completely mask it. I've heard of others that identify the users but don't give managers daily access to it, basically just providing reports and heat maps and how people are performing, and then going back and actually having a meaningful conversation with that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So it's not about monitoring. Let's face it, in life, there are high performers, there are ideal performers, and unfortunately, there are people that don't want to do their jobs. But it helps in having a meaningful conversation at a HR level. How can we help you? Right?
Absolutely.
I think people that don't want to perform their roles are probably in the minority, and there's this whole cluster that actually want to do better, but they've not been given the tools. And no one can identify that. It's all by feel, right? Someone say, "I'm struggling." All right, what are you struggling with? But that person physically has to say, "I'm struggling." Right? And there's a lot of companies at the moment that we're talking to. This has all been done manually, but it's not helping organizations with a hiring cycle, because when people are overworked, when they're overloaded, let's just say they're not quitting. They're actually still there being overworked and overloaded, and they're going along doing that. But you can't actually identify that you need more people to perform those tasks, because let's face it, ultimately, it's about the customer experience, and all those clogs or blockages in the back end across departments is driving interactions to your contact center, and it's actually making your customers unhappy. At the end of the day, you're there to run a business, make money, and help your customers, right? So if you can't identify that I need more people to help my customers, or I have to automate this process because it really doesn't need someone to sit there and do a mundane task every day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
right? So you start identifying processes that can be automated. And I'll go back to RPA, robotic process automation, and AI. If you can't identify what's actually happening, what are you automating?
Yeah, what are you automating? Because you're
What are
going to
you
go,
buying out of? Yeah,
that's right.
you
It's
may
going
be
to be, it's not going to be a good strategy around AI and automation. You're just
no,
going to
because
guess. But with
because
the
what
data
do
will
you
really help
yeah,
you.
that's right. What are you automating? You're automating something that you think you should, but you have no data to say that's not even a high volume task. That's not a complex task, right? Or this is a complex task. There's no way we're going to even try and automate this. So
Yeah.
companies are spending a lot of money getting external advisors and consultants to come in and identify all this. But that's all done over months and manual, etc. You know, if I cast my mind back to the contact center industry where I spend a lot of time, in the early days, there were no tools such as customer journey mapping, and people were doing this over 3, 4, 5 months. And by the time they've identified the data, the opportunity is lost, the staff
Yes.
have left. So why not do this type of thing real time and actually address what's happening in the organization and why it is? Because at the end of the day, you know, for a better acronym that's been around for years, PPT, people, process, technology, has to work together. People can't do it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
The process itself can't do it all, and you need the technology to do that. So having the data across people, processes, and technology will give you a complete view of what is actually happening in the organization. So the productivity plays one part, but it's giving you insights into the other parts, right? And you touched on software utilization, etc., and that's showing you from the productivity side. So these are all intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you articulated that really well, because this is something HR leaders, CEOs, and boards of directors need to take note of. It's intertwined, people, processes, and technologies, and you've really got to look at the data to really make your if you want your company to be successful in hybrid work, and I truly believe that organizations can attain that. You really got to get your hands dirty, but you want to make that effort to understand what's truly going on. No, good points, Brandon. And if I can just go on a bit more, because you talked about a very important topic there. You talked about how you want to find the best resources for some jobs. So how can employers use analytics to understand or better plan, which resources are best fit for certain tasks? It is a balancing act, as you also don't want to overload the highly skilled staff too much and give them too much work. So how can enterprise really make this work for them really well and manage that workforce optimization?
Yeah, so by obviously utilizing the analytics, you're able to have a look. Let's just pick your support desk, right? People are doing a volume of tickets in this amount of time, and say someone's doing, let's just call it 80 tickets in 8 hours. Someone's doing 43 tickets in 8 hours, but you have no idea what it is they're doing because you don't have the analytics. You don't know the process. So by identifying the processes that they're actually working on, you can give those different processes a rating scale, 2, 1, -1, whatever that is, to correlate and to normalize it. So when you look at your quadrant analysis, you actually know it's a true quadrant analysis of productivity, and you can identify, okay, so these people are taking longer, but they've worked on more complex tasks. Or these people are taking longer, but they've worked on the same tasks. Why is that? And then how do we actually get them to be there? Or are they comfortable just doing this high complex work or the low complex work or wherever it is? And when you start looking at the work distribution, because this is where it becomes important, right? Everyone's sitting remotely. The workload is not distributed evenly.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And we talked to a financial institution 2 days ago, and I was really surprised that in this day and age, someone is sitting there and manually pushing work out to people, process-based work. All right. So how do you do that? Because they know who's good and, or they think they're good at their job and they're just pushing jobs out to people. And that's where you get the overwork, because it's a human pushing the work
Yeah.
to someone they know is going to do it a lot faster, right? So once you start looking at this, the trending and applying these lean management modules, and I focus on this a fair bit with customers, because our customer base spans from 50 customers to one user that's 60,000. So we've had a number of enterprises running 10, 15,000 users. We have a myriad of customers running 50, 100 users. But at the end of the day, everything's relevant to the profit you're making, to the size you are, but you can start applying this lean management, and the module that does this was actually designed in conjunction with McKinsey for one of our largest customers, and applying reports specifically to lean management, beneficiary calculations, capacity planning, and these may be common to people that are from the contact center industry. But how do you apply this to an actual workforce and come up with capacity? And do you need more? Is there latent capacity? How do I calculate if I had 80 developers and I'm paying them this much? What is the return? How long does it take? Right, so it starts getting into real deep.
So it really starts getting into granular data, and
correct.
You can start assessing profitability and outcomes really well.
Outcomes, that's the key one, right? I said time before, but what are the outcomes during that time? And that's what people they can't measure it today. It's done manually.
No, good points. And just on that, Brandon, because I know you spend a lot of time in the contact center industry. So contact centers have a lot of metrics they collect, AHT, average handle time, first call resolution. They look at call recordings to understand 100% of the calls. So there's a lot of data that is helping them with their day-to-day decisions. What else should contact centers be thinking about that they're probably not thinking about at this point in time about data?
Look, it's interesting because, again, I'm having various conversations, right? And you speak to contact center leaders that are seasoned and, been around for a long time. So they just basically have a feel for it, right? In the contact center, you have, as you said, the average handling times, the grade of service, those type of things based on the customer experience platforms. But T2 minus T1 doesn't necessarily present what happened in the process, because someone, and especially in the contact center, how many times have you been on a call when someone says, hang on, I just have to open this application, just wait, I have to open this application. And people are jumping all over the place, and it's not getting through the process the way it should, or maybe it is.
I've been through those.
Maybe it is, but the process is incorrect. So how do you actually, it's great to identify the time that people have logged in and logged out of the contact center platform, but where have they actually navigated to? And when they're saying we need more staff, do they need more staff, or is it your process that's broken, or do they need training? So that's really a deeper set of analytics for the contact center. It's, trying to ring 2 or 3 seconds out of a phone call and that type of thing. I think that's done to death. But it's basically helping them. And you talk about capacity planning in these tools that exist in the contact center. Yes, they can capacity plan, but that's based on time. It's not based on the process or why.
That's right. It's based on time.
Correct. And that's not a true metric. Time alone is not the metric. You've got to have the output, and you have to have the analytics to better plan.
100%, absolutely agree. Really solid points there. And just because we're also running out of time, but I have to ask you the last question, and that is, you've seen so much of success. You're meeting a lot of customers. Can you talk about the benefits you're seeing from customers around the workplace and employee analytics? Are there any use cases you can share, Brandon?
Yeah, look, obviously the one key thing that's coming out, there's a couple of things, right? People are overworked, but also the legislation in Australia is very, very strict, right? We've seen a lot of big organizations being outed in the media for not paying their staff overtime. People are coming back 2 years after the fact. So there's a whole compliance piece to this as well. Right? And we're talking to certain providers that are working with organizations in this regard to make sure there are audit trails or to ensure that people are being paid for the overtime that they're doing. But again, it's a very gray area, right? Because people are going based off timesheets, and that's not accurate data for the organization. But the whole compliance part is where we're seeing some use cases emerging, right? So not necessarily just about the productivity, but it's on the compliance part that we're seeing some movement as well. So that's one of the use cases. Obviously, our foundation is in outsources and being able to have accurate billing. So that's a real challenge for large financial institutions that have large outsourcing teams, whether they're onshore or offshore. It's about the billing, because all companies are also interdepartmental billing for those outsourced services, and it's per man per day. But is that accurate billing? No, it's not. And a lot of our large outsourcers are now using that as a competitive advantage against the other outsourcers to actually go to companies and show them the data and say, I can give you accurate billing because I know what my productivity levels are. But furthermore, when you come to me and say, we want to do this development project, I can tell you based on analytics and the cost of people, how long this is going to take for us to do your project. So, there's a whole lot of use cases beyond just measuring time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail there when you mentioned compliance, because we all know how many enterprises in Australia have come under scrutiny with ASIC and just about other bodies, and it's really serious. It's really getting a lot of press. Almost every week you hear some hearing that's coming up. And like you said, you don't want to just go back to Excel sheets or just 1 or 2 receipts, but you really want actual data. You want data to prove processes that have gone wrong and dig deeper into that. And you can only do that when you've got real analytics at your fingertips.
Yeah, and I don't think any organization is out there to underpay people. I think it's just a real issue that people are struggling with.
Yeah. No, I think some really good points there, Brandon. And I want to say, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great chatting with you as always. I think you shared a lot of great insights. And as everyone heard from Brandon today, if you're a HR leader today, a CEO, a team leader, a contact center manager, these are real issues. And you've got agents, you've got staff, you've got leaders working in offshore locations, remote sites, and how you balance that well is going to be, absolutely critical. And I think you can't just achieve solid hybrid work, as you heard from Brandon, just by guessing or thinking or saying that this is probably it because that's the feel you're getting. But you really need to address issues with accurate data. So I think this is really going to be big, Brandon, and a great topic. So thank you very much for your time.
Well, likewise, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks for joining. Bye, everyone.
Bye.